Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Dread Time Stories. I'm your host, Dr. Phobia, and tonight I've decided to do a part 2 of a series since it was very well received. Now, the series I'm speaking of actually began back about 4 months ago when I posted 3 true stories that came from my family. Now, I have a story of my own. It has nothing to do with the supernatural. It actually has something to do with something far worse, because this is actually a real person we're talking about here. Someone that face to face tried to end my life. So sit back, relax, and enjoy tonight's tale, Never Four-Wheel Alone. To give you a little background on this story, it happened to me just over a year ago, and nothing has happened since, so sorry if you wanted something that continued to happen, but just be glad that I'm okay and can bring you more content. Anyway, I was actually four-wheeling at a spot that I go to pretty close to my house, about 15 minutes away. I was on my ATV and I was having a good ride, just enjoying the nice summer air and clearing my head for a while. I had rode for about 3 hours when the inevitable happened. I got my four-wheeler stuck in a pretty good sized mud pit. So after about 10 minutes of trying to get it out, I finally stopped and realized I had to reassess the situation and come up with a better alternative if I really wanted to get out of there. After wedging a few sticks underneath the rear tires and lather, rinse, repeating this method for about an hour, I realized I was getting nowhere fast, and the sun was quickly setting. It was then I heard something, the roar of a motor. I looked over my left shoulder and noticed a Jeep coming out of a clearing. He pulled up next to me and got out. It was a middle-aged man, probably 6 foot tall, 200 plus pounds, completely bald. He walked up and said, "How's it going, son? You look a little stuck." To which I replied, "Yeah, it's not going so well. I've made maybe about 10 feet of progress, and I still got quite a bit of ways to go. I don't think I'm getting out of here anytime soon." The man flashed me a grin, and I noticed he was missing about 5 or 6 teeth, and the other ones that were still in his face were still, a couple shades off of puke, if you will. He looked at me and said, "Well, I'll be willing to help you out. I got a winch on the front of my Jeep, and for $30, I'll go ahead and pull you right out of there." I looked at him and said, "Seriously? $30? It's a little steep, don't you think? And besides, I don't have my wallet on me. It's back in my truck. I wouldn't bring something like that down here. It's a great way to lose everything." The man's smile quickly disappeared from his face, and he gave me this weird look, a mix of frustration and I don't really know what to say. I mean, it was just strange the way he looked at me. He said, "Alright, fine. If you think that's too steep, $15 and I'll pull your sorry ass out of here." I had to do a mental check to think about how much money I actually had in my wallet back in my pickup. Thinking I had around $20, I agreed. And he hooked his winch up to the rear rack of my four-wheeler. Now, like any other electrical object, it has to be powered by something. In this case, the winch was hooked directly up to the Jeep's main battery, and trying to keep the Jeep running, the lights on top, and the winch wasn't going so well, and the winch didn't have enough power to even pull my 700-pound four-wheeler out of the mud, even though on the front it was rated for 4,000 pounds. So after the winch finally gave up and fizzled its way out, he looked at me and said, "Well, I guess you're shit out of luck, kid, because now you owe me $15 and you're stuck." I said, whoa, hang on a second. I said I'd give you $15 if you got me out. If you didn't get me out, I'm not paying you. End of discussion. This time I could tell the exact feeling on this man's face. He was straight pissed. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "You little liar. You said you'd pay me $15, and I'm getting my $15, whether it be in dead presidents or taking it out of your hide. You pick." Now, I may not be the biggest guy in the world, but I figured I could take this dude. So I told him, if you want a piece, come on. He replied with a machete from the back of his overalls. And it was at that point that I realized just how screwed I really was, and I took off running in the opposite direction, leaving my four-wheeler reluctantly behind. As I got about 200 feet up the trail, I heard the Jeep roar, and I knew he was chasing me. So I ran up the trail as fast as I could, hearing him catching up faster and faster. Finally, I hit a place where the trail splits, and down the right-hand side, it was too small of an opening for him to fit his Jeep, so I hoofed it up that side. I heard him cuss a few times and take the left, which was a longer route, thank God. After running what felt like an eternity, I made it back to my truck, fumbled with my keys slightly, and jumped inside, started it up, and drove down the easier part of the trail that leads back to the main road. I climbed the little hill and got back onto the road, and gunned it. And that's when I heard a sound from behind me. The roar of that Jeep. He had busted onto the road a few feet behind me and was right on my backside. I tried to go faster, but even the faster I went, he kept up. This was the scariest part right here. I heard a loud bang and then the shattering of glass. And that's when I realized a bullet had went through the back window of my truck and out my windshield, missing my head by about 6 inches. That's when I knew I had to lose him. Now, for those of you that don't know, Jeeps are extremely top heavy, especially when you add bigger tires and a lift kit. So, with my truck being lower to the ground than his, I took a sharp curve. I made it, he didn't. I watched as the Jeep rolled onto its side and rolled completely over. I didn't even stop to check and see if he was okay. Honestly, I hope that he kicked it right there when that Jeep rolled, and I just hammered it all the way home. The next day I returned with some friends to get my four-wheeler out, and I noticed that all 4 of my tires were slashed, the keys were gone, and the fuel line had been completely cut. So whoever this guy was, he really wanted to make sure he sent me a message that he wasn't thrilled I didn't give him $15 at a failed attempt to tow me out. While it may not be as scary as some of the stories out there, it's still scary to me, knowing that I was about 6 inches from taking a bullet right to the dome. Well, there you have it. My true scary story. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for listening. Like I always say in closing, check under your bed, look in your closet, and sleep with the light on. The life you save may very well be your own. Good night, everyone.